Yay. Okay, thanks.
Okay, can't wait to see what tomorrow.
Okay, we are live.
Yay, okay, great. We're live, we're recording, we're on, okay. Good evening, everyone. We are here this evening for a third budget workshop for the FY26 calendar year. And I will turn it over to the manager's team.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the first thing we want to show you is we've done a assessment of where property taxes go. This is based on this year's current mill rate, and this is a reference talking point for the council as well as the citizens. So you can take this, and if someone was to say, for instance, has a house value of 400,000, the total tax bill down below is 5,368, and it shows you what they pay for the school portion, the town portion, the county portion. This is clearly just to show how it's broken out. And what they get for their services of the town portion. We're not trying to show any dark scales or dark shadows on anything. We're just trying to identify that the town portion of what you pay at 42.25 is the total overall tax bill. So if someone wants to see what it is, that's what their taxes are. So any questions on that?
And that does include all the TIF as well, just so you know.
So the TIF, what we're paying from TIF has already been factored in
Yeah.
here.
Included in the town portion because it stays local.
Great. So where do my property taxes go? Is this something we're gonna make public?
I've done this the last couple of years.
Okay,
So just to give a talking point
Totally.
for you guys, this is the current budget we're in with the current mill rate, just to give an idea of how it's broken
this is
out.
FY25.
Correct.
Okay, awesome.
Right, yeah, so this is just a current talking point, so that if someone says, well, my taxes are, yeah, well, okay, but you know that 42%, and this is the value, is the town's portion. Irregardless what everything else is, that's the town's portion. I think that's what people have to understand. They need to be identified that their full bill of $6,710 on a $500,000 home is only collected here. That we pay $805,000 school bill each month as well as county tax. So that it's dispersed out. That's all. It's just a informational piece so that the public has better transparency and understanding. Questions, thoughts, ideas?
Yeah, but I think this might be a good thing to add into the public hearing. This is like, people forget about this and just need to be constantly reminded that your property taxes don't just go to the town of South Berwick. And unfortunately, it's something that's an oversight or just forgot, and a constant reminder is not a bad thing.
And we also do have the pie chart on all the
Yes.
tax bills that do go out, so we'll continue to do that.
I like the visual, having all the town services below it too, because that kind of hammers the point home, like, you know, this is what you're paying, but this is what you're getting out of it.
Yeah, we
I'll have one more detailed like that for the
Okay,
public.
that is helpful for me, and I think it's good to
Yes,
include that.
make sure we educate the
Yeah.
public.
I also wanna make sure we put FY25 on this, so no one thinks that this is like,
Yeah.
because we're in budget process,
Yeah.
that they're like, oh, but this is what,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure we're super clear on what
Yeah,
this is.
It says on top current mill rate with current budget. But
Yeah,
I'll
but I
make
think,
it
I think we
clear.
need to put the
We'll put
date on
25.
it. Even I, as the town council chair, was like, ooh, is this current number, like, cause I don't always remember what we set the mill rate at the past year, you know, so.
Yep.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, so we have some new sheets. We've gone back and we printed off a new sheet for you with the options. So tonight, what we need from the council is a consensus vote. You can't obviously make motion to votes here tonight, so we need a consensus. So tomorrow, myself and Jen can start developing the actual draft budget, put all the numbers in, put all the factors in, and get it ready to go on Thursday for Fridays for the agenda, then the agenda for you on the 25th. So that you can vote on a draft budget that we can take to the public hearing on the 8th.
And you'll have the warrant as well, so.
And the warrant as well.
Decisions,
Yeah.
the budget will be updated and the warrant will be completed by
So-
Thursday.
Myself and Jen went back and looked at a number of items, so to look and see if we could cut anywhere else in the budget. So this does reflect a change. We did look at the merit raises and we we had done the merit raises to a dollar number, $1.75 and 50 cents. We went back and we just changed it to a flat 5.05%, like the PD, bring everybody in line. When doing so, between the reducing of the salaries plus the
Benefits.
benefits. It's a cut of $75,000 on merit raises, so we reduced the merit pay by 75,000. So these are the new numbers that have come in since then. So now that's what you're looking at. So number one, again, you see 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, as we said, it shows you, no EMS, all cuts of CIP. 1-2 is no EMS, CIP was 50%, 1-3 is no EMS. And that's at 900,000, and then the same for the second option, number 2, 2-1, 2-2, and 2-3 show you no EMS with $1 million out of the undesignated. In red, number 3, 3-1, 3-2, and 3-3 is adding EMS. 3-1 is all cuts of CIP with $1 million, with 900,000, shows you the budget. 3-2 shows you 50% back with 900,000, and 3-3 shows you adding CIP at 100% back at 900,000 withdrawal from the undesignated amount. And then option number 4 is 4-1 is, again, adding EMS with all cuts of CIP with $1 million. 4-2 is EMS, adding CIP at 50%, $1 million, and 4-3 is adding CIP at 100% with $1 million, and it'll show you the percentage increase in the budget. So at this point, that's what I have for you, Madam Chair, and members of the council. I'm looking for discussions and inputs, I guess.
I have just a question on this sheet to make sure I'm interpreting this correctly. So if I look at, option number 1, the top section, I see 1-1, 1-2, 1-3. Does 1-1 not include the town hall payment?
It does.
So the town hall payment's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Great, okay, thank you.
We knew that had to happen, so I left out that extra.
Okay, so the little blurb that says with the town hall renovation, I'm just gonna, for my sake, cross out because it is included in every row.
Correct.
Okay, great. Does anyone have questions on understanding this document or following?
So you bump the merit raise, you, instead of scaling it, everyone's at 50 cents.
No. Instead of it being a dollar figure, instead of it being
Oh, percentage, okay.
50, 75, or $1,
Yep.
based on your merit, we just went back and changed, so the highest you could get was 0.5%. And if you got so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you got a 4 or 5, you got the 0.5%, if you got a 3 or below, you got the 4%. And so we changed it, by doing that substantially reduced the amount of the merit program to save us 75,000.
So it seems like the, I guess, like levers that we need to discuss are, I think we need to have consensus among the council if we're going to be including the EMS fire setup in or out. We need to talk about undesignated fund. They've essentially presented 900,000 or $1 million, and then also the CIP stuff.
Correct.
So, and Tim, you had mentioned earlier, can you just explain the library bond payment situation for next year for us?
Go into that, so the library bond is locked next year, just, you know.
Yes, I don't want to misspeak. Let me just pull up that budget real quick.
I said
Okay.
Jen's finding the specific numbers, but essentially next year, so this,
Yep. So we have,
next year at the library, we have one more library payment left, correct?
yes, we have 2 payments. The fiscal 26, it's our last payment. So one of them is the library construction loan, which is 102,500. And then we have a smaller vehicle loan coming off for 25,000. So that's about $127,000 in fiscal 27 that we will not have to factor in.
Yes.
That will help cover the town hall payment. So that'll help absorb some of that. So that's how we got away from, that's how we got to us reducing CIP 1 year. Because we had to include the town hall payment. So, you know, irrespective of what it is, we're gonna pay the town hall payment, which was 7.3 million. So, yes, you got three options you have to decide on, give us some kind of consensus tonight or something.
So does everyone understand that with the library payment? Where essentially we have this FY26 is our one kind of tricky year where we've got both the library payment and the town hall payment. After that, the library payment falls off, which kind of creates space for the budget within the budget. In the event we continue with fully cutting CIP as they propose here. And then that creates room in the budget this time next year to add that CIP stuff back in.
Correct.
And just another note, for the town hall renovation, this year is interest only. So in fiscal 27, that amount will go up.
What will the amount go up? Will it go up every year? It should
Nope,
be
it'll just
flat
go
rate
up the
every year.
one time and then
Just the
it will
one time.
hold steady thereafter.
What will the new payment be ish?
370
Okay, so it'll be,
from,
So what would our
250.
portion be outside of the tip? Take the tip payment, what would our payment be beyond the tip?
70.
yeah, because we should be able to pay, we should be able to consistently pay for half of the town hall payment.
That is correct. So it'd be 185,000,
Okay, okay.
up from 122,500.
Right, so next year, point is next year, how we got to where we are today, is we could do a 1 year absorption for CIP, where we could put that back next year, because that 122 or the 170, whatever it is gonna be primarily absorbed because the library payment's going away.
So Tim, do you have any concerns with not doing anything into the CIP? Is there anything that is like, yes, we can do this, this would be the place to make cuts if we needed to? But are you hesitant in any department specifically?
Accounts.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I did this, I made those cuts, you know, they're high cuts, right? Cause we're making a budget for 18 months out, and I can't predict what's gonna be good or bad for 18 months. And those capitals are our savings account, those are the things that we go back to, you know, buying a loader and so forth. But I also too know the value of the ambulance issue that, you know, where we, not only we, us, everybody in southern Maine, all over the state, are in a quagmire with ambulances, right? And the question doesn't become, if we don't do it this year, what do we do next year? At some point, we're gonna end up in a issue with the ambulance, so. In an effort to try to make the ambulance thing look as good as I could, we made as many cuts as we could. If you said to me, what's the perfect world? I would go with what the county administrator told me. County administrator said, taxes stink, people have to pay them and they're gonna go up. And I would say, I would do 50%, put 50% back in the CIP. I don't think you're gonna see, you're not looking at a major jump in taxes. You're not looking at a $2 or $5 rate that I see at the mill rate. I can't predict it right now because we don't have the school, we don't have the county, so I can't really do that. But, you know, the balance for me would be 50% back. But I also understand the issue you're facing of presenting us to the taxpayers and what the percentage looks like. They also gotta understand that when we talk about, you know, the 7.67%, 3-2 increase, that's not a 7% increase in your taxes, that's just our budget.
Mhm.
You know, there's a lot of other factors that go back into that, the new growth, new valuation, school budget, county tax. We don't have that. People look at it, and go, oh, my taxes are going up 7%. No. That's just this budget. That's just our expense budget and our revenue. You know, so it's a hard number to kind of understand and sell at this point. But if my recommendation would be to go, if you said to me, which one would you pick? I'd pick 3-2. I think it's safe.
So what
I've had a long talk, myself and Jen, we've talked about it extensively, and we both agree, we think that's a safe area. And knowing that there are other towns around us, their budgets are going up 9-10% without an ambulance issue going in. I think Nick, and I wanna thank him for his hard work on this, along with Jen and myself. We've worked hard to craft the pieces of the puzzle so that we get what we need. There is gonna be some impact to taxpayers, we can't do it without it. But it's as least intrusive as it is, our budget's not going up 9-10. As I said, when other towns did it, their budgets went up 16%, 21%. There are towns around us, their budget's going up 9.4% without adding this stuff in. So I think that, you know, that doesn't justify it, but it makes it easier to tolerate. That's my recommendation.
And it's two big things, EMS and a new town hall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
can we start with like EMS? And
Mhm.
just like, let's start with that and just see which one of these ones we're in, and then
I-
900,000
yeah.
versus 1,000,000, and
I
then.
was gonna say,
CIP,
to cut it short, does anybody
I think-
believe option 1 and 2 are on the table?
I was gonna suggest the same, like, I think we had consensus last time that everybody was in
So
favor
we're all
of
on board
EMS
with the
service.
EMS,
Yeah.
so now, all right.
No,
Oh.
Jeff.
Oh, no, okay, alright. What do you wanna talk about with EMS?
I'm just answering the question.
Okay, so you're not in favor of doing the EMS service?
Correct.
Okay, alright, well, we have a consensus here, Bill, you're in favor of EMS? John,
Yes.
Melissa?
Yeah,
I am as well. So that's four of us, so we're just options 3 and options 4.
Right.
What do you guys wanna talk about next? CIP,
Undisclosed.
undesignated?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
undesignated.
No,
Undesignated. I knew it.
So,
Okay, undesignated.
so. Tim, you and Jen went with 3.2, right? Which gives us an increase of 7.67% at $900,000.
Mhm.
Question one, did you take the $900,000 because it's easier to sell than $1 million?
Yes,
Okay, so throw that off the table, because again, I was a big proponent of that before. But that's 7.67. We take an extra $100,000, which is a drop in the bucket on a $10 million budget, and we do 4.2. We're at a 6.6. 6.6 to me is a lot easier for me to sit here and sell to the people in the audience to get everything we're getting than a 7.6 versus the $100,000. That's just my personal view. But to me, 4.2 is a winner with the 6.6 for $100,000 more. And again, I've been the proponent of not going to $1 million the last couple of years. I'm comfortable with it this year because town hall, EMS, what we're picking up is a win.
and. So if I may-
No, go ahead. That's all I got to say.
Yep, and I don't disagree with that, I think that's fine, but just be prepared to answer for in the warrant. Remember, we gotta take out another
33,000.
433 out of undesignated for the ambulance startup, for the capital cost of the ambulance, get the ambulance and the major equipment. So it's really gonna be $1.4 million when we're done, but that's okay, we have that in the budget, there's plenty of that money in there, that's what we've been saving
So
for.
we're still back to $1.3 million, $1.4 million. To me, $100,000 is a lot of my house, but on a $10 million budget,
Technically, that's two things the undesignated is there for, that's what we say, people could say to us, well, what's our balance right now in undesignated, roughly, Jen, 8 million?
Wait a minute, I have a spreadsheet on that.
And
Yes, I believe 8 million.
you know, people say, well, why do we keep saving all this money? We're not gonna help us, because that's kind of what it is. So this is that one opportunity where you say, okay, you know, certainly, but getting to the 400,000 for the animal startup box, that's exactly what they're designated this for.
Process question on the additional 400 some for the ambulance. That'll be a standalone warrant article in May.
Just in the CIP, so that where the fire is, there'll be
Okay.
fire, whatever is, it's in the CIP, I think it's in the CIP line, is that where we're gonna put it?
Yes, undesignated right now has 8.1 million. We have some things earmarked,
Okay,
but whatever, regardless of what we pick, we'll have over 2 million above and beyond what we have to have in it when it's all said and done. Well, I'm
So,
sorry, what was your last?
just the
The-
process for the warrant.
well,
like the-
for the warrant, we decided to put that,
So we would add that 433,000 into fire CIP as a one-time only on the warrant.
Okay,
And we would take one-time only 433,000 out of undesignated. Plus the other amount off to offset from the taxpayers to pay off that portion of the CIP in those warrant articles.
right,
Just
so
like
it-
we do for the 900,000 for the undesignated in the past,
okay,
I'll put it in the article where it will be paying for that item.
you're right, it'll all be in one with one question, but if we take it out of undesignated, you're gonna put it in the fire CIP to spend it.
okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you guys are moving on, assume, with the EMS. Part of my reason for not being on board with that is I don't believe that we've had sufficient explanation about the process. And I don't think that it's responsible of us to just, win going with EMS without understanding the process.
What is the process?
Exactly.
Yeah, that-
You should understand that as chair, what the process.
No, I know, but I don't even know what process you're referring to.
Tim,
The process of standing up the ambulance service,
yeah,
the presentation the fire chief gave us.
Yeah.
it's more than that, right? It's state law. There's a state law that we have to adhere to.
Well, we have to get a state EMS license, which That's not a big issue, there's a filing fee and but you gotta have to get the state license, you gotta have an ambulance, you gotta have a written program, we gotta have a budget number, we gotta have all that stuff. And then apply for a state license. Then we gotta get approval from the hospital, which we already have, we've got that contract signed by Wentworth Douglas, but we gotta have a ER doc that would oversee our program. And then we'd have to budget for it. And then once we get the budget, we get it, once it's passed, and we have the monies, and we go through the process, then we apply for the state for a license, and then the state just puts us on sort of on hold till we get the ambulance, we get the people, and then they come down, they do an inspection, and then if we have all the equipment, we have all the people, and we can cover the calls 24 hours a day, then they give us a license, and we're good to go, and the additional liability is how much?
It was only $4,000 to have malpractice and the
Okay,
ambulance.
so it's not a big thing, and that's the process, I guess, so I'm not sure.
And then we would hire, if we went forward with this, we would hire the 8 people in May and then go live July 1st of the following year.
Yeah.
But this is only really 2 months work and then the setup.
Right, so I mean, like, right now, I don't understand, like, there are numbers, there's data that shows and says, not just the feeling that we should have our own ambulance with our emblem on it. There's data that shows that it's feasible with a certain number of calls. Do we have that data, like?
Yeah, Nick showed it to you in your PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
He showed you, remember the graph where the pieces come up and it's in Nick's PowerPoint.
Yep,
Right.
and that's-
So right, so in 2 years, but there's a bunch of hypotheticals that go with this, okay?
Right,
So we don't have from our contract ambulance the exact number. And they're billing, so they include our number in Rollinsford. So we think our number is around 800
800
calls.
calls total.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. So the other part is the state's also looking at right now, actually, it's not the state, but, so municipalities can pass ordinances to bill for non-transport. Private ambulances, York ambulance can't do that, that's a big issue for them. So down the road, we could set up our process for that. So, yeah, the process, we've got a hold on the process, we know how we're gonna do it. We walked it through, Nick has spent numerous hours researching it. So again, it's this process of, we have to budget for it. Once the budget's approved, then we have to start building it by getting equipment. We have to have certain equipment. So to be a licensed paramedic service, you gotta have an ambulance with a stretcher, with a defibrillator, with a drug box, with all this stuff, and you gotta show that you can feasibly buy that stuff, which means we gotta pass a budget first, which Nick has proposed, which we have. And then that includes the benefits and the salaries and the insurance and the retirement of all the people, 4 firefighter, advanced EMTs, 4 paramedic firefighters, and then standing them on. So we have a process in place. What the pieces it's hard to explain to people is that in year 2, what we don't get in year 1 is the startup cost. In year 2 is that we get revenue coming back because we can bill the patients, right? Then if we expand the service and pick up another town, we have that contract money coming back, because you never make a profit, as Nick said, I mean, it's not a profit-making service, it's just, right now, the contract ambulance, the unknowns and the intangibles, they don't align with our values in our community, so this more does, right? You have people who are work here, assigned here, care here, and so forth. So we can't do anything really until, the only thing we can do is what we're doing right now, what you asked us to do, was to get basic medical equipment and apply for a first responder license, which we have done. We have spent that money, so we're just waiting for EMS to give us our license, and then we'll be officially first responder agency. In other words, we can go ahead to the ambulance and treat patients with any EMTs we have. Nick has set up an EMT course starting in September, which will run through December, January, to get more people trained as EMTs. Then if this passed in May, nothing would start till about December of 25. We would advertise for the positions, we would start interviewing, get people, start going through that process of hiring people. And in the process, somewhere between March to May, we would hopefully buy our ambulance, get our equipment, get all that stuff stocked. By May, I've hired our 8 employees. And we've already talked to other agencies, Dover and some others, so that the younger ones that need training could ride with Dover for a month. The other paramedic would ride with York Ambulance for a month, so that they would have an opportunity to do that. And in the meantime, we would get ready to flip the switch, get our license, make sure our ambulance passes inspection, the state has to do an inspection. Get the scheduling in place, get the license, and then July 1st, York Ambulance would stop and we would start. So I guess we do have a process. So
Well, we have a process based on that one option, right? What we're being presented with is we do our own or we stay with the same, which is all doing.
Are you looking for another option?
I think I think that it's responsible to ask for another option, and that's what I would push for is, to spend.
So what's the other option?
So one thing I just wanted to just kind of rein this in. So we have 4 counselors who are in favor and supportive of what you guys have presented thus far. Jeff, I totally hear you. You are not. We are 4 to 1. I would like for us to at least can get to some type of understanding on some of these other items, given, because I think we as a council have a duty to get on board with the majority. So we're now at a place where everybody's on board with keeping EMS in.
Sure, I just think that the majority hasn't put the amount of thought in it, and I was
Fair.
trying to have the conversation.
Yep.
To air my concerns about the costs that we're being asked to spend, but if you aren't. You can
Well,
go-
I think hearing your thoughts, absolutely.
I wanna be really careful about saying we haven't put the amount of thought into it, because there's been many meetings on this, we had a
2 meetings.
very in-depth presentation on it. We're not coming in here just looking to spend money, I mean, this is, to me, the EMS services is non-negotiable, we have to have them. And this is the most viable option to do that.
So the other side is, what other options are there? Right now, it's either private, which is what we have, which is gonna keep going up, and because of what the governor wants to pass with 6%, is gonna skyrocket what we're paying. Or we have to go private. Lebanon is also right now looking to go private. They're having the same discussions we're having right now, and this is Lawless Lebanon that's
Do you
actually
mean
deciding
going
this.
like building their own service?
Yes,
Okay.
they are talking about building their own EMS service right now in Lebanon to join together with their fire department the way it used to be in Lebanon. Because they are not getting the services they require, they're waiting forever. So there are really, unfortunately, only 2 options I see, unless you know something we don't, or we haven't discussed, or Nick hasn't found. Unfortunately, there's only 2 options: stay with what we have, or build our own EMS service. We can't join another town and do it, because that would just be a logistical nightmare. Trying to do it financially between the 2. We can pick up other towns once we do our EMS. You have Berwick and North Berwick that we respond to with our fire department, that if they wanted to and they didn't have it, we could go there. But what other options do you see that we've missed?
Well, I
I
guess that's the point is like, we're talking about, or it's tossed out there as that we can take on others only as a point to sell us that there's extra revenue. Is there an option that, I don't know who has a Berwick or North Berwick has their own fire,
They don't, that's
Nobody
the
does.
problem,
That's the
nobody,
whole
knows.
No, Berwick does.
North Berwick does, but
Yeah.
Berwick uses Stewart, and Stewart just started billing them out, they gave them a contract for $194,000 a year. We did reach out to Stewart's and talk, Stewart's not interested in picking us up, they don't have any interest in that. The next one would be, closest to us would be Dover, we don't have enough money to pay Dover. Pay Dover to cover us would be probably 700,000, I don't know, if not more. To get Dover to come over here would be, expensive.
What about Northburg?
North Berwick has an EMS service. But we spend a fair amount of time covering them. They went to a full-time service, but when they're out, we cover them. So, and that's take a few minutes to get here.
Is there's fire and EMS?
No, they just.
They're
do
just
that for
EMS.
It's not Berwick Ambulance Service. So they just have paramedics that they have on duty. The next one-
Another just aspect of this, and just correct me if I'm wrong, is, you know, there's sort of this acknowledgement of our current situation with our current fire department. And that we've got a bunch of guys that are aging, and how much longer are we gonna be able to support
Mhm.
from a fire perspective? And so this is not just an EMS proposal.
We're all, if you wanna just stay with a private ambulance service, you are. And, you know, we'll put on full-time firefighters, I'm all for that, but again, that to me is not logical, that's expensive.
That's throwing money out the window. If we're paying them to sit
Sort of.
there,
Sort of.
well, how many ambulance,
So,
how many ambulance calls, Tim, versus fire department calls do we have?
so 800 to 500.
Right, so instead of paying firefighters to sit in the fire station all night long and all day long, which again, that's what they have to do. My son's a professional firefighter, right? Understand it.
Is he a
24 on.
medical cross-trained?
Yes, working through it right now.
Yep.
Does he wanna go?
No, he's staying in Tennessee. I can't afford to come here. Sorry, Dan. But we might as well pay them to sit there and be multi-use to us the whole time. If we're gonna pay them to be there, let's use them to their fullest potential, which 300 more calls a year going to ambulance. And we have a firefighter ready to respond both. It's a win. I don't see us. One, we're gonna have to put people there no matter what. So if we're gonna put people there, make it worth the town's money to put the people there.
So if, I guess, trying to understand what you're asking. If your concern is that you've only heard about it through recently, that we've had this program, that's because it's the budget process we're in. I didn't bring it to you last October it wasn't a place, there was no time, there was nothing to discuss it. We've been looking at this for over a year now, Nick's been working on this. The reason I haven't brought it to you folks is because it wasn't an opportune time to bring it to you. It comes to you at the budget process. That's where it starts, you know? But I guess I'm trying to follow your question. So what is it?
Yeah, what is it that you're looking for, Jeff?
I was just,
Like,
I feel like
besides
we've
hearing
been
your-
told, what's been shared is, this is the answer. And
So let me ask you a question. Do you think we're being dishonest to you, Councilman Minahan?
I don't think you're trying to be, no, I don't think you're being dishonest,
Because
no.
we're not. I mean, I've been before I was a manager, I was in the fire service 30 years, fire and in that service.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
think
know.
I think that it's my responsibility to ensure that I get answers to the questions that I have, whether that makes you feel like that you're that it offends you or not.
No.
Don't think that my questions are saying that you're being dishonest.
Okay, well,
My
I'm just
questions
trying to
are
understand what they're saying, what
Yeah,
you're
right.
asking.
I'm just saying, like, my questions are, what are the options? Right now, we are proposed with two different options. It's either now or we lose out, is how I'm hearing, is we
Well,
lost out.
Yeah, so there's so many other towns doing this, okay? There's only a certain amount of pool of firefighters to gather, to get to this, okay?
Yeah.
So we can wait another year, you can wait another 2 years. But the process to grab them, because Wells is looking to hire 12, Lebanon's looking to hire 8. So the salary range that we're gonna need to attract people here is only gonna go up higher and higher and higher to get staff here, or I don't know what option 3 would be for the town. If you ask me, say, Tim, what's option 3? Option 3 is, I guess, I don't have an option 3. You either contract an ambulance or you have a fire municipal base. To have a standalone town of South Berwick ambulance company and pay them that wouldn't be financially feasible. That wouldn't make any sense. So it only makes sense to do what every other department in the nation is doing, and that's combining them with fire and rescue to do 2 jobs with one person, which is fire and EMS. So if you wait longer, would certainly your option. If you wait longer, the cost is only gonna go up more as we get to that time, and or we just wait and don't do this at all, just stick with the contract ambulance and just take the prices of increase. And the problem is we fear that looking at the way they're trying to stay solvent, so when York Ambulance went to their big increase 2 years ago, they gave like a $40,000 increase to York, a $4,000 increase to Rollinsford, and a $200,000 increase to us. And next contract, we figure that'll occur again because the same standards are occurring. It costs more money for York to provide EMS service in South Berwick than it does in York. So they charge us a lot more to cover the losses. So the only options I can provide, I can look for more options. I can have Nick look for more options. I'm not sure what those would be.
The only other thing that I've heard is regionalizing, but I don't know what that means or.
Well, regionalizing would be what they do down south, which is the county process, right? The county, we up our taxes significantly, pay them to the county, and the county puts paramedics on logistically, say, in 3 or 4 different towns around, and the ambulances, they staff 4 or 5 different ambulances at the fire station. And it's been done in, down south, Virginia, Washington, North Carolina. There's a lot of county stuff down there. It just hasn't been done in the Northeast yet. It's not, we weren't set up that way. We were set up by kind of different things, so, other people have looked into regionalization. The problem with regionalization is you've got to get, so let's say we propose to regionalize with North Berwick, Berwick, and South Berwick. That means we gotta come up with, we gotta negotiate salaries, pay, hours, ambulances, cost of CIPs, and we gotta get all those 2 select boards and the town councils together. We'd have to negotiate all that, come up with a package and a contract. They would have to be on board. Who's gonna run it? And so I'll be honest with you, we tried that in Franklin County when I was up there. And we spent many months trying to organize a countywide fire system. We didn't need EMS because it was through the hospital. And in the end, it came down to, it failed because none of the chiefs could agree who was gonna be in charge. No one wanted to give up their hat. So,
It's not the best regional dispatch. When we had our own dispatch, it was nicer. It was expensive, but we had our own dispatch out of this building. It was nice because the dispatchers knew everybody, knew everywhere in town, knew all the roads, knew people to go to. With regional dispatch, we hit issues with roads having the same name in 2 towns, who's calling, where they're calling from. So again, regional EMS would be the same, and we're still gonna run into, it's gonna cost us a lot of money. We're still gonna have to put full-time firefighters on.
Yeah.
Eventually. So we still got that caveat of we're still gonna have to put full-time firefighters in the future. Near future, within 5 years, I would make a blind guess that we're gonna have to pay for anyway.
if the council wanted to give me that direction, I would certainly reach out, but I don't think Berwick and North Berwick. I would, and you'd have to tell me who I'm talking to. Who do you want to regionalize with? And
I sort of, this is me just sort of thinking out loud, but like, I feel like our ability to regionalize and to gain some efficiency with this comes once we have established our own, because then we could say to Elliot, to North Berwick, to whomever, like, hey, we can help you guys out. But I feel like there has to be some type of interest at the county level to do this regional thing, which I'm sure if that was a thing that was on the table, we would have heard about it.
so just so you know, so understanding, and I certainly respect the regionalization thing, don't think that I haven't. For the last 1.5 years that I was on the negotiating committee for trash, I've been talking to Elliot, York, whose transfer station is close to ours, Berwick, whose transfer station is up here, trying to see, do we all need transfer stations? Can we regionalize? And here I said, bringing you contract for Eco Maine, their own tipping fee. They just doesn't work out. And I'm pretty sure if I told all the people down, if I put a sign up for closing a transfer station, go to Elliott or Berwick next week, that they probably drive me off into a town square somewhere.
And Jeff, I appreciate you bringing it up, and it's not about a 4-to-1 vote, because right now it doesn't matter. We can't do it anyway. But I appreciate you bringing it up and bringing the conversation to the table, because it gives me more backing right now, knowing we have done our homework, and there are, like, to me on the table, there are 2 options. And there are only 2 options. We need to choose between the 2, but again, I don't look at the numbers. If any of us have a question, we need to run that question to ground and get there before we move on, because that's not fair to you, it's not fair to anybody who has a question.
I'll
We
get,
need to run it through.
I'll get all the information you want, just gotta tell me what you want. We've looked at all the we've looked at all the algorithms of how services are provided, so we only see across the state and across the nation, we only see 2 or 3 ways. 2 ways, private EMS, fire-based EMS, municipally owned, or county-based EMS, county fire EMS based regional. That's the only things I see across the nation, so.
Like I said, I'm sold on 4.2. I was here when South Berwick Rescue was here. It was great for the town. I understand why they did away with it. It was short-sighted. But again, some decisions we've made with Mallory and I sitting at this table in the last 8 or 9 years have been short-sighted because we didn't know that
We did the best.
they
we
were
could.
gonna sell to do 4, and then the pot shop would be closer to the school because that school didn't exist. We didn't know that. At the time, we made this decision based on the best information we had. And I think this is one of those times where we're gonna make this decision based on the best available information, which Nick and you have provided to put me at ease selling it to the public.
I think if there's going to be an ask for any additional work on this, because I know how much work has already gone into the EMS stuff, I think we need to have a consensus from the council that we want you guys to do that work. But I agree, I think I'm all in on EMS, I think it's absolutely something we need to do. I think whether we do 3 or 4, it is up for discussion, but I think I wanna kind of keep us moving. Jeff, I want to be respectful of your questions, make sure you have a chance to do that, and I also want us to continue forward doing the work we need to do tonight. So on the EMS topic, like I don't want us to sit here, Jeff, I want you to be able to answer your questions, and at the same time, I also want the 5 of us to be able to use this time to figure out what makes sense for undesignated and other options too.
I'm gonna throw 4.2 on the table because I like it and it's an easy sell. So there's my throw on the table.
I will say for myself, I feel like I have stronger feelings about the CIP cuts than I do about what number we pull from undesignated. I just gonna think out loud for a second. So if I imagine us next year, assuming we made all of the CIP cuts this year, next year, when we're doing the same process, it's going to look like we're adding more to the CIP, right? We're gonna see a plus there, which we all know, this group knows, and this is being recorded, and we can hopefully try to remember that, like, that's something we intentionally removed and then are adding back last year. But I just wanna like kind of put that out there, like what questions does that then put us in? Or what situation does that put us in to then be in a situation next year where we're not adding a bunch more back to CIP? I think it's just something we have to be prepared to explain and just articulate this story, but I didn't know it. Because you know how budgets work, like you're always comparing back to the previous year, so if you make big cuts, then it makes it harder to add them back.
Correct, yeah, that's correct.
So,
Then people say, well, if we did it for 1 year, we can do it for 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And then you end up in a quagmire where you did it for 4 years and now you're running short on something.
mhm.
But I wanted to propose it, because
That's why I went with 4.2 with 50% of it. It's right down the middle. We show due diligence in cutting, but not cutting all the way, so we don't have to explain $100,000 deficit next year. That's the only reason I went with 4.2. I could go 4.1 or 4.2 either way. I'm good with it either way. I want to stay under 7. That's my only goal, is to stay under 7. Just because I like it better. So I could go 4.1 or 4.2, but I went 4.2 because I like having 50% there as an easier sell. Again, knowing what you're saying, you're right. We're gonna have to explain this again next year. But with cutting 50, it's an easy say, hey, we cut 50 out of CIP, realizing next year we're gonna have to put that back in, but it doesn't cut all of it and it gives us a little bit of buffer.
And have feelings or thoughts on CIP or any of these options? I would be perfectly happy with 3.2 or 4.2.
I'm leaning more towards 4.2. I think that not cutting the CIP completely, I think sometimes, even though it doesn't make much of a difference, I just feel like sometimes, an action or a gesture speaks louder, like just trying.
Mhm.
It gives a better optic to our taxpayers than, to not try to cut at all. So kind of meets us in the middle, and next year, who knows what next year holds, so it's kind of a, if we can get by with cutting 50%, and it's not gonna really bite us in the backside down the road, I think doing the million, out of the undesignated, doing the 50% CIP cuts, adding the EMS, I'd be comfortable with 4.2 as well.
Oh, for the CIP cuts, if we did the 50%, is that? I know we've asked this question to you guys before, but I'm just gonna ask it again. Are we gonna apply that 50% like straight across, like to every CIP account, or are we kind of, you'll be strategic with where you?
No, we go back and prioritize.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. What are some of the ones, just if you know, offhand, what are some of the ones that we,
I don't know, but I have to look at the sheet.
The
But you can move
playground.
it- You can move it around. If you cut it from one, you can always move something back to it.
yeah, I was just
Right.
curious.
So
like,
in the,
for
in
my
the
own-
big picture, it's 50% of CIP and you can put it back wherever you want it.
Right, so the priorities always are the have-tos, which are police, fire, highway,
Mhm.
transfer station first.
Yeah, we took a big cut on the transfer station.
Yeah, those go back. I don't think, I'm really excited about putting a lot of money back into the town hall because I think we're getting closer to renovation.
Yeah.
So I would look back, those ones need to go back, those are the more likely pieces that I would see. You know, a dump truck getting in an accident, needing to be replaced in a public works, or a fire truck or police car, or something happening at a transfer station. So those would be the first priorities, and then everything would be a tier two after that, we look at whatever.
But the 50,000 we're talking about, Tim, if it was a fire truck, would buy us a hose and a couple of tires.
No, right.
You know what I mean? I
No,
mean, it's there. We also have other ways, so
right,
it's not gonna. It's, like I said, it's an easy sell for me to people if they ask taking 50%, because it shows we're cutting, but not to the point it's gonna hurt us. Because that makes no fiscal sense either, because we're just gonna go back and take it out anyway.
Bill or Jeff, do you guys have thoughts on CIP or undesignated?
I like the 1 million versus 900,000. And I could go with any one of those three options. 4.2 seems like it's in the middle. I'd be fine with honestly any one of those. 4.2 or 4.3. I was kind of leaning that direction. So I'm not gonna die on that hill or fight anyone tooth or nail either way, so.
I just don't like the 7.2. I just don't like the 7 number. It just.
Mhm.
Well, that goes back to your 900 is easier to sell than a
It
million.
honestly,
6
it
is
honestly
easier to
does.
sell than 7.
It does.
Like, that's what it is.
It really does. I mean, it's just me sticking with numbers, but that doesn't. It's just me.
For 2-3.
Okay. Okay, so you're of the opinion of what so from a CIP perspective, then you're wanting to,
If you. The majority's going with EMS, I say. Fully, put CIP at 100. And, but max everything out, that's what I say. If we're doing the EMS, why stop?
You said 4.3, John?
I said 2-3.
That's what I thought.
yeah, but you said 2.3, but then you said later on, if we're sticking with EMS, then you'd go 4.3.
On the record, I am 2-3, but if the majority, my recommendation to the majority is to just. If we're going to be making a budget spending, just spend the heck out of it and max the CIP. I think that's important.
I can't do that, and yeah, I'm gonna go back to a comment the chair made about the bond fund of, well, the money's in there. I was brought up that just because I got $5 doesn't mean when I go to store 24, I spend $5. I spend $2.50 and walk out happy. I don't see, they've said, Tim and Jenna both said they could survive without. If we made the CIP cuts, they both said we could survive this year without it. Which is a big ask for them, and they were comfortable telling us that. I'm comfortable going back. I don't want to put out to the public, well, we decided we were gonna spend it, so we decided to just spend it all. I just can't do that mode of thinking for myself.
John, what was the number that you said? The four, was it 14?
4.2, which was 6.6%, that gives back 50 to CIP.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a hard sell no matter what we do, and it's going to be, but I don't wanna give, and you're right, we're raising taxes. What's the difference? Well, it's almost, it's about 0.75%. To me, that's a pretty significant difference.
I'm not being a jerk about it. I understand. what you mean.
No, I appreciate you, you're being me from years ago, and Jeff, I respect that. I'm good with it. This is what we're supposed to do. That's why there's 5 of us.
Yeah.
I have respect for this, trust me.
My concern, I hear you on the 4.2, the 4.2, I understand that. My concern is about that rainy day. Are we hitting that CIP? Right now, it seems like a good number, but I'm nervous about the future.
Me too.
Well, for that reason, I'm on board with 4.3, and I guess maybe I'm the new guy coming in pretty naive about people looking at, and, you know, realistically, they're looking at the number in gray. And they're not gonna be looking at everything else.
No.
You know, they're not getting the look that we are right now. I like to think that they would look at what we're trying to do here and see the logic behind it. So I think 4.3 is, like I said, I'm on board with that one. I'm not gonna.
So go the other side of this. I'm gonna put another side to you with that. If we go 4.3, it shows we didn't make one cut at all realistically in this. We just pretty much went along.
We did make merit cuts.
Right. We made merit cuts, but we didn't make anything substantial
Yep.
all along. We just rode the rails of what we were told.
Yep.
The difference between 4.3 and 4.2 is what, $54,000? It's not a drop in the bucket to buy anything.
I know.
It's for $54,000. It looks good when we're live, so you can see this. It looks good that we're trying to cut it. But in the big picture, $54,000, if we have a problem, doesn't cover anything. We're gonna have to go somewhere else to get money.
But I mean, to your point, you know, we're talking about cutting $54,000.
Yep.
We've already cut $75,000.
Yep.
So it's not like we're not cutting nothing. We're already cutting more than that.
We are cutting
But
something,
again,
but
they're looking at that, they don't care about either of those. Nobody,
no, they're gonna look at the 6.6% or 7.2% for an increase on our budget. Because if my food budget goes up 5% and then my wife decides to go shopping and it goes up 7%, we're gonna have to talk about 7%. Right? If it was 5.6, I'd be okay with that, but that's, to me, in the time I've been here, and it doesn't matter much, but that is a little, that 6.6 is an easier sell than 7.2.
I'm not
It's
changing.
all in-
I'm not
it's
changing.
all in
That's the
numbers.
problem.
Well, it's just a numbers game.
So like, I feel like I kind of like look at this and I wear like 2 hats, like the hat of like, I wanna be the counselor who's like, you know, taking in the information and trying to adjust, and trying to do the taxpayers like a favor and, you know, kind of this cutting exercise. But I said to you the first night, Tim, I was the one who asked, I wanted to see if we added the CIP cuts back in, because I sort of agree with, there's this other part of me that feels very uncomfortable about fully cutting the CIP, because I feel like that process that we have of intentionally on a regular basis, setting aside money so we can proactively replace police cars and all these things, that is so important, because that allows us to not, like, I feel like that process that we've had in place is part of why we have such a healthy undesignated fund, is because we have been planning appropriately, setting aside money to make these big investments. And so from my like I don't know, more like operational perspective of just like the running of the town, 4-3 is my favorite because I feel like it is providing everything that the town needs from the perspective of just trying to meet people this wouldn't be halfway necessarily, but from the perspective of just trying to make an effort to try to lessen the burden on the taxpayers, I think the 50% CIP is a great intermediate, but I could go
Yep.
depending on the hat that I choose.
Throw it on the table or we could be here all night. Which
Yeah.
way do you guys wanna go? 4-3 or 4-2? Because there's 5 of us, it's gonna be odd one way or the other.
Well, we could do 5-1.
What is that?
We could add $100,000 out of the undesignated.
Yeah, we could throw another.
And then that would cancel the 100.
I'm gonna go ahead and.
2 options on the table, 4-2 and 4-3.
You could, you know, take more than designated, whatever.
How much fluff do you have?
Melissa, no Zambonis, we know more about it.
What, how, 4-2?
4-2 or 4-3 are your 2 options.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sort of putting it out there, 4-2. What do we think?
I'll say
I want 4-2.
Yes,
4-2.
4-2. Melissa, you're gonna go 4-2?
Yeah.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think we have consensus on 4-2. 4-2? 4-2.
How about 4?
I
Yeah.
just want you guys very clear. I don't want to get to the end of this. I'm not voting for this budget.
Okay.
Just so you know,
Yeah.
like, so I agree to keep it going. I agree with where you're at, but from where you started, I'm not voting for this budget.
That's fine.
So, just so it's clear, okay?
Yep.
If we went to 4-3, Jeff, I probably wouldn't have been. So just so you know, but I'm good at 4-2, but again, that's why there's 5 of us.
Yeah, exactly.
This is why, and
I
again,
just don't want you guys to get to the end and be like, what the heck, Jeff, you've been talking with it. No, I'll help I wanna
Process.
help the conversation.
Yeah.
but-
I would have
Thank
asked you what the last 45 minutes were for, if you did vote for yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we have consensus on 4-2. We have public hearing on now 4-2. This budget will be happening on April 8th, correct? At that hearing, I think I would like to ask that we all be prepared to speak about our thoughts about the budget that we're gonna be presenting. So like, I think Jeff, like, that's a good opportunity. If you wanna say publicly, you're not gonna be supporting this pool, and I think we should also just be prepared to speak about the budget when we get to the public hearing and when we go to the action the council will take later on that meeting to get the public meeting scheduled and warrants and all that stuff. Does that make sense?
So we will be this year doing the warrant different. You will have to read each warrant article in its entirety and vote on each warrant article.
At when?
Tuesday's meeting,
The 25th or the 8th?
Well,
25th.
25th, you gotta read the draft. And then you're gonna have to, last year you talked about, you had asked about how do we show an individual vote? If you wanna show a council vote, you have to vote on each warrant question.
Okay, so,
It was the land, I think, Melissa.
Oh,
You
yeah.
were like, oh, well, so this year we're gonna show 5-0, 5-0, 4-1 on.
whereas
each
this town
warrant
council
article.
recommends.
I gotcha.
Okay,
So we're gonna be a little more specific on that.
okay. So at the 25th meeting is when we have to read through all the individual articles?
Right,
Yeah.
so.
I'm sorry, everyone, but you're gonna.
No, I'm giving Melissa the eye, I'm okay with you.
So the only way to do that, we either do it one of 2 ways. Either you vote on the warrant in its entirety, vote one, but you had asked earlier about that warrant question. The only way to do that is you have to vote on every warrant question separately, read them, vote on it, discuss it, motion, pass.
And that's fine, because that way, I agree with Melissa on that one, because that land, there were differing thoughts from the council. And to say that it was, town council recommends was disingenuous to the people that didn't want to do it. I fully understand that
Yeah.
and agree with
Not
it, so,
consensus, we're gonna be specific.
yeah, it just makes it a little longer, which is good.
Yep, and that way there, but you also, should be prepared that if you vote 4-1, that, I'm sure people are gonna wanna know why you're descending on that vote.
I had every intention of that it would be during town meeting, that I would be voting no against it publicly. That's how I thought it would be handled, so I was planning on doing it publicly anyway.
Right, so it would
Do
be,
both.
you'll be both, you'll vote on March 25th, you're gonna vote again on April 8th, because March 25th, you're voting on a draft to take to April 8th. And then at April 8th, you'll have the draft budget, you'll go through all the warrants and the budget numbers and that stuff. And then later on in the evening, you will have to do your official vote on the budget, or the warrant, which includes the budget.
Yep.
On each question, that'll be, motion, second, vote, council recommends passage 4-1, council recommends, council recommends.
And then that'll be on every warrant article that's read when it goes, when
Correct.
hopefully
Is
Mr.
Mark,
Lawrence
yeah, I was
gets it
just gonna
again.
ask, is Mark gonna be our guy? Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I got it.
That's, so
Yeah.
we've set a couple of dates. The 25th, March 25th is our next meeting, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
And that's just like regular business where we'd be tossing this into.
Regular business to finalize the draft language for the warrant.
Right, so you will have a, correct, you'll
Yeah.
have a draft to vote on.
Okay, all right.
And then at the eighth, we have the budget public hearing at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
And then we will formally vote to adopt or accept the budget as is, as a council.
In the
To
warrant.
prepare, in the warrant articles and stuff to prepare it for the, annual town meeting on May 20th.
That's the next.
Yeah.
meeting. Okay, good. I just want to make sure I have it.
So that's
Thank
a little bit of a different process, but
So-
that's cool. Just the reading and the,
Once we go through each one, we're voting on each warrant individually. The budget can pass as a whole with specific articles not passing potentially. And then it would have to. go
If
back to
we
draft.
have a warrant article that doesn't pass, we have a problem. Because 4 of us just agreed right now on this budget, so we should be at the most, realistically, 4-1 on every vote if Jeff had an
Well-
issue with any warrant article.
To your point, not everybody agrees on all parts of it. I'm just asking,
So-
if
so-
that were to happen,
Well, no, so we agreed on the budget, the only thing we don't agree on is 4-2 versus 4-3. That's not gonna come up. We just decided 4-2 is what's gonna be there
So
So-
all this will be gone, you'll just have the actual budget,
for each individual
the
department.
totals up 4-2.
so the
Yeah.
warrant articles are like, that's like all that crazy language where it's like, for this department, we're allocating, so there's this.
yeah,
There's this exercise of trying to marry the warrant articles to the budget that is, it
So,
obviously
so
doesn't happen,
if
but.
we had, if this had gone through 3-2 instead of 4-1. Where could,
Nope,
my question is, procedurally, if there was an issue with one of the warrant articles, it would have to go back through the draft process all over again, and. I'm not trying to throw a wrench in. I'm
No,
just-
no,
I'm just
so-
asking.
no,
I'm just trying to understand
so
the question.
here's-
I don't know if I'm understanding the
here's,
question.
I got
We
it.
have warrant articles.
So here's what we
right?
went
Vote
through.
on each one.
Right, so here's what we went through for the budget, right?
Yep.
We are all in agreement with all these numbers on the budget.
Yep.
Correct? Consensus, we're all in agreement on the budgets. The difference being Jeff didn't want to add EMS. So when we got to that warrant article, he might say no.
Right.
But the 4 of us have already said yes. The 4 of us have already agreed to 4.2. So that's what we end up. That's not gonna be, 4.2 is not gonna be on the article.
No.
It's gonna be all these budgets that we already agreed on. And then when we get to the end.
All right, there'll only be
Yeah.
2 sections that shows
Anything with fire.
anything with EMS
Sure.
fire in it.
So.
There'll be the fire budget, and there'll be the CIP, there'll be the CIP, and then there'll be the designated fund balance. So those 2, I assume Jeff will vote no on, and
The rest of them,
it'll be, gotten Jeff will vote how he wants, but,
But I'm sorry, if, then last one we talked about was the police, right? If I, for some reason said, no, I don't want that extra, I could vote, I could be like, nope. Even though we didn't talk about it when that came up, I could be like, no, I don't like this budget.
well, and this
I-
is,
now I-
right, and if that's the case, this is the place to discuss it.
But exactly, I'm
But
not
I'm just-
saying I feel that
so-
way, I'm just saying that.
Hypothetically, we have an issue with one of the warrant articles, we'd have to go through this process.
No, it gets changed right there, and that's why you're
Okay.
having. That's,
On the 25th, we would
On the
change the
25th.
language.
Okay,
you have 2 options to change it, the 25th or at the reading on the 8th.
okay,
So you read that, and then later on, you would either vote on, you'll go back through and do it all over again. And vote on it. If it didn't pass, then you would say, okay, well, we wanna make a change, this item. Then you'd have to vote on it sometime on April 8th, stay till midnight. If you change your budget numbers, we go back in, work the budget numbers, come back out, and then you have a new motion to vote on that number. April 8th is the deadline that we have to hit our town meeting on May 20th. By state deadlines for advertising the ballot, getting the ballots out, getting the town warrant published and everything, it's gonna be voted on April 8th. It's done.
And April 8th is my mother's 70th birthday.
Ooh,
So y'all better get
Happy
on the same
birthday, Linda.
page, so we're not here until midnight on April 8th, or my backside.
My, May 25th is my daughter's 25th, so
Yeah.
we can just keep going back, or March 25th, so we can just keep going back and forth.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Everyone clear on process dates, what happens next, things like that? We have consensus on budget option 4.2. You guys are clear on that? Anyone have any other questions or comments?
Is there any other information the council,
Yeah.
any of you want, or needs? And anything in the budget, whether it be the EMS piece or something, else? Is there anything you need? From us?
I just have a question real quick about the town hall bond.
Okay.
So we took a bond for 7 million or six, and now TIF payments can be used for the payments towards the bond, correct?
50%.
50%, up to 50% of the payment.
So will that allow us to pay the bond off faster, or will that, where we didn't know we were going to be able to use the TIF money, that we could use?
If we
the-
started collecting more money from taxpayers, then yeah, we could pay it off faster.
Yeah.
But we're
Right.
essentially collecting less from taxpayers because of the TIF fund.
Okay,
Right.
We're
okay,
gonna make the same payment, we're not gonna make.
We're making the.
We're
Okay.
not giving a payment and a half, we're not nice.
We're
that's,
just.
yeah,
No, we're not doing
Taxpayers
that.
have to pay for
that's
that.
kind of what I
But
was
there's no
at, yes.
prepayment penalty either.
Oh, okay.
You're asking.
So, I
Okay,
mean, if someone left us $20 million and we decided to wanna
Pay it off.
pay it off, we could.
okay. I'll keep that.
You know anybody?
Or if you had a really good year and you chose to say, this year we're gonna put the full amount to the taxpayers. And we wanna pay an additional 50,000, as you said, you could, I don't see that happening, but I suppose you could do that.
And just for my clarity,
Mhm.
so the rec department is already, was already in the 40 that we talked to Nikki about is already in there.
That
right?
part-time
That's
position,
part-time.
yep,
The new position for the police
the BHL,
is
yep,
in there.
Yep.
Okay, so it's not, that was all in part
Mhm.
of that, okay.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah, the only cut
It
we
was just-
made was CIP,
If you,
And merit raises.
and merit raises.
we made, yeah,
Last.
that's the merit raise and the CIP, plus the other stuff that we did, that we took out of the budget, that we.
Talked about on the first day.
Right, all the other stuff that we, you know,
You know, not another police officer.
and I think like that stuff, like what some of the original kind of like department level asks that kind of fell off, I guess, during our process, like I can include that as part of the slides for
Mhm.
annual town meeting, just to kind of say, talk people through like the evolution of the budget a little bit.
right.
And just so, like, I went through and did what I always do, and I, even not knowing the details behind everything, right, with all the line items. Where I felt comfortable swiping and snatching money, I only got 55,000 out of the budget. You know what I mean? So I mean, I think it comes down to the same thing, despite where you guys feel I am. I'm very grateful that I don't see, and I'm not a finance person, but I'm not that numb. I'm not finding hundreds of thousands of dollars just sitting there so that we can feel comfortable, you know, it is tight, you know,
You have a
so
long
I
budget.
appreciate it.
There's no problem.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure I'm getting you the right information. And if I didn't get you the right information, I need to know that. I need to know what to get you to complete your answers. So-
And that's the thing for, especially fire EMS, that's a world I do not ever want to be in. I don't have a care for it. I am grateful that other people do, so I don't have to. And so I don't know anything about it. So then I have questions, but I don't know the questions that I
Okay,
have.
So-
you know what I mean? that's
so
the-
we've looked at, just I guess get it on the record, we looked at every possible option. From not having an EMS service to funding it this way, funding it through York ambulance, maintaining that for the next 10 years. We went out 10 years. We had to go out, project out 10 years to see the longevity of the process. So we looked at that. That's in that chart you have. That's the stuff that Nick looked at. And then we looked at doing it, you know, keeping, there's more unknowns keeping a contracting note than there is having it in the house for us. We know that. There were no other options that we could determine other than municipal fire base that does dual function and serves two capacities for the community. fire and EMS. You know, staying with just EMS, private ambulance service, and hiring our own firefighters is not financially sound. It costs more money.
Yep.
And
No,
so,
I appreciate the work that you've done with it, you know. I think it's good, yeah.
Okay, what other? Any other questions? Anything from-
no, the only thing I wanna, so, a new development, I'll just tell you here tonight. We were explaining Mallory, so, the Eagle Maine contract, it's got two parts to it. It's the tipping fees contract for 30 years, and it's the mortgage payment to the buyer. The tipping fees is a normal contract that you can approve for me to sign, which you did, and I can sign. The mortgage piece, because it's a financial piece that you have to approve for 30 years out, has to be in a warrant question for the voters. Cause it's a bond obligation that we're paying, very similar to doing the construction of the town hall. So I gotta put that on, that's gonna be in the warrant. So Bill has drafted the warrant question, it's just gonna show up as just same thing, it just talks about that payment for 30 years as our mortgage payment to
And within this budget, we have it in the transfer station operating budget is $12,000.
Okay.
For the year.
And this will just be on the warrant article, or sorry, in the warrant just for this year. It's not gonna be a
Correct.
recurring thing for the
yes,
next 30
thank you,
years.
yeah, it's
Okay.
just this year. The one-time thing, only because you and I, as municipal officials and me as manager, we can't approve long-term debt like that. Mortgage, so forth. If you do contracts, that's different. That's contract for service, you can quit. But a mortgage payment for that, it has to be the voters.
Cities, so.
Yeah.
So that's all. I just wanna make sure you know that's gonna be in there. So that's
Don't
it.
plan any presentations on the 25th or the 8th.
Does everyone, I think it's fair to say we're okay. We don't need to meet this Thursday.
I'm not
Done.
coming this Thursday to talk budgets.
Okay. We're good. Okay.
We have, no, we have,
Great
we don't need to, we have a lot to do to get ready for your next meeting.
Yep.
We have a lot of new, she has to put together the warrant, we have to put together the budget. Yeah, we have a lot to do for you. So
Great.
we'll try to keep it as light as possible, keep the stuff off that we can, so that we can get through this, but. You know,
I read fast. I'll be able to get.
No,
No, don't.
Read slow.
Yes, there's a lot of people that are like, Mallory reads too fast. You need to slow down just a little bit.
And you need to lower the mic level.
All right, okay, we're all set. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.